Hey, Mandy Evill here, CEO and founder of the Infinite Mind Company and high performance and mindset coach. So I'm here today because I want to talk about the comparison trap. I'm sure that those two words may sound a little familiar to you, comparison trap. It's something that as human beings, most of us, in fact, all of us at some time will have fallen into it. And some of us fall into it over and over again. So I want to talk about that a little bit of why we fall into that little trap. In fact, when I say it's a little trap, it can be a hole that we can fall all the way down and we can spiral down and down and down into it. So what I want to do at the end of this, I'm going to give you 3 steps, 3 little tools and tips that will help you to leverage yourself out of any comparison trap that you might find yourself in. So what is it and why do we always fall into a comparison trap? Now, if you're a human being watching this, which I know you are, okay, then I suspect that at some time you will have experienced this. Well, the reason that we do this, and I know I have, okay, I've experienced it. I have experienced many times in my life, and I've experienced multiple times in particular areas in my life. So what is it and why do we fall into this comparison trap, which often seems like so easily, it's like so easy that we just fall into it? Well, here's the thing. So we have an internal picture of ourselves. We have an internal, what we call self-image. We have an external one as well, which is how we dress, how we talk, what we do with our hands when we're talking, how we present ourselves. So how we present ourselves is how we present ourselves to the world externally, and that's how people see us. But actually what happens is we've got an internal world as well, and our internal view and image of ourselves can be highly critical. This internal self-image, it's like a secret self, if you like. The internal self-image of us can be pretty negative. Now, I don't care how positive you are, because listen, I always used to think, and I was a kind of person who was glass half full kind of person. Yep, good old Mandy, she's always positive. But that doesn't mean to say that I didn't have thoughts and images and beliefs about me that weren't actually useful for me. So absolutely, we will all have an image of ourselves that actually doesn't always serve us to operate at our best. And in fact, often we can present very well, we can do what we need to get done, we can do our tasks, whether that's in work, whether that's in a relationship, whether that's if you're a business or an entrepreneur, we can do what needs to be done. But that doesn't always mean that underneath and inside we are feeling as confident as we do on the outside. Okay, sometimes I think some people call it the imposter syndrome, but this is slightly different. Okay, it's slightly different because we have a mechanism inside us that kind of automatically wants to take us over to the negative side. It's like a little dial, and it tends to go just slightly towards the negative than it does to the positive. It doesn't stay neutral, sadly. It just leans over to the negative. So we're always needing to do some work to bring, internal work to bring it back. So we have, I know, most people will know that you've got an inner critic. You've got this little voice that in your head that will tell you, that's not good enough, you're not good enough, you could do better. That not only could you do better, you could probably excel if you tried harder. And so they have this little negative voice in our head that tends to move that dial over to the negative. And when that dial moves over to the negative, we just seem to fall into a trap of comparing ourselves. We compare ourselves to others. Now, there's a difference between comparing ourselves to others versus aspiring. Now, we can aspire, we have mentors, we have people that we look up to, maybe in business, maybe celebrities even, maybe friends. I know that when I was very young, especially in my teenage years, I had a lot of girls that were older teenagers than me that I would aspire to. They would be doing things, or they'd have traits and personalities. It's like, yeah, that's what I want. That's what I want in me. So I would aspire. So when we aspire, it's brilliant, because aspiring means that we're taking ourselves up a notch. We're creating. In here, we have everything, by the way. There is everything inside of us that we need, all the resources. We are everything that we ever want to be. It's just about whether we choose or give ourselves permission to let it out. So aspiring is a great thing. It moves us forward. It takes us to the next level. Aspiring to be like somebody it's a great external motivator. I don't actually believe in a lot of external motivators, but I definitely, because I believe we have a lot of internal motivators, but I definitely believe in that, is to aspire to some maybe attributes or to achievements from that other people have, that you see other people have. And I think that's a great thing to do. It's not the same as a comparison trap, okay? So what the comparison trap does, it compares us. What we do is that we compare ourselves to others. So it's like, you may be maybe you're in a business and you know somebody else in the same industry, they're doing better than you. You haven't quite reached the same level of business income, or your business isn't where it wants to be, and you see somebody, somewhere on the internet probably, that's doing great, on Facebook, they're doing great here, great there. And what happens is that we then compare. We don't aspire necessarily, because we might not even know that person, but we then compare. Well, I'm not as good. And actually we can even compare with people that we do know. Okay, so we can compare in relationships, we can compare with friendships, we can compare in business, we can compare if you're in a career with jobs, in the office. So in the comparison, okay, what happens is, what we're ultimately saying when we compare ourselves, well, I'm not good enough. That's what we're saying. I'm not as good as that person. So that's what we're saying when we compare ourselves. We're not aspiring. Aspiring is great because it's drawing from us bigger and better versions of ourselves. But the comparison trap is just negative, and then we come down hard on ourselves and we criticize ourselves because we tell ourselves, I'm not good enough. And when we do that, man, we're putting that dial right over there, okay? And that spirals. That is what spirals into what I call the comparison trap. Now, everybody gets this. Nobody really, unless you're full mastery, you have full mastery over this. We're influenced from external factors. We're influenced by other people because we are influenced. We can't help that. We're programmed. Our mind is programmed to be influenced through our senses. We see, hear, taste, touch, and smell. So we're influenced from the external world as it comes to us. And therefore, because we're influenced, are we being influenced in a positive way, or are we being influenced in a negative way? So if we're being influenced in a positive way, that's great, because we're looking at somebody who's done something that we would love to do. And that's great because we're inspired. And when you're inspired is in spirit. We're bringing more of our own internal spirit to the surface, and it draws us into great action, okay, which is fabulous. But if we're comparing, then what we're doing is we're taking ourselves down the negative route. We are telling ourselves internally, it doesn't matter which way you look at this, that we are telling ourselves internally, I am not good enough. I'm not as good as that person over there. I'm not as good as that person there. And it's simple. I mean, there's no fluff around that. We're simply telling ourselves, I'm not as good, and therefore I'm not good enough. And when we fall into that comparison trap and we start to affirm to ourselves, subconsciously in our mind, it's like that little secret voice, okay, I'm not good enough, then all we're doing is affirming that. And we're keeping our vibration low, we're keeping our confidence low, and actually what we're doing is we're putting the lid on us and not allowing our true best self to come forward, because we have a true best self that is always wanting to grow. But the comparison trap really is a trap, okay? Now, there are 3 steps that you can take. There's 3 little tools and tips that you can do to help you maneuver out of the comparison trap. The first thing is you've got to know that you're in there, okay? You've got to be aware. And I suspect that most people are aware. If they're not aware straight away, they suddenly realize that they're not feeling so good. It's like, oh, if we trace that back, what happened? Okay, I'm just comparing myself to that person. So once you're aware and once you see that you've fallen into the comparison trap, then I'm going to give you 3 things that you can do to navigate your way out, okay? And they're very, very, very simple. The first thing is that you see what we've done. Let me just explain this. So what we've done in the comparison trap, we've put our focus externally. That's the first thing that we've done, okay? And then we've internalized that in a negative way. So the first thing is to focus in. We have to focus in on ourselves. Like, we have got to let go of all the stuff that's around us, the circumstances, situations, other people, okay? So we've got to start to focus in. And the more that we focus in, the less that everything else on the outside begins to drop away. So how do we focus in? Well, my recommendation or my suggestion is, and what I do is that I write out my goal. That's the first thing. And if you haven't got a goal, that's a whole nother issue. But if you have a goal, and you should have a goal, and you want to have a goal, because a goal is always going to pull you forward in your own development. Okay, so you want to write that out. Sit down, take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, sit down and write out your goal. And if you haven't got a goal, I don't care, just sit down and write out, what do you want? How do you want your life to be? What do you want in your life? Start to get back involved with you and how you want to be. How do you want to live? How do you want your business? How do you want this relationship? Go back into your imagination. We have an incredible mind. And imagination is just one mental muscle out of 6 that we get to use. Okay, so use your imagination. Go, that's what I say, focus in and not out. So take 5 minutes, okay, 10 minutes. Sit down and say, okay, I'm going to focus on me. What do I want? Where do I want to be? So get back involved with you here, okay? The second thing is, again, you've got to get away from this overthinking, because that's what's happened. You've started to think in a negative way. So we've got to get away from the negative thinking. Great way of doing that is to do something that makes you feel good. What is it that makes you feel good? Maybe it's going to the gym. Maybe it's having a favorite meal. Maybe it's treating yourself to something. Maybe it's going out for a run. Maybe it's making an arrangement to go out with your friend. Whatever it is, do something. Maybe it's listening to your favorite music. Maybe you like to sing along when no one's listening. I would sing along if no one's listening. Whatever it is, do something. Maybe you love to read. Take some time out right there, right then, and do that. So if you love to read, maybe you just want to watch maybe a favorite episode, an episode of one of your favorite sitcoms, or even a movie. It doesn't matter what it is. Get involved with something else, okay? That you love doing. That's the most important thing. This isn't just, oh, I've got to get on with business. It's doing something that you love doing. Get involved with something you love doing. Now, the other, that's number 2. The third thing is to go and do something for somebody else. You know, you're absolutely taking yourself away completely from your problems, if you like. It's like, how can I be of service to somebody else? How could I help somebody else? Let me take my mind off me completely and maybe go and have a coffee and leave a tip. Maybe walk down the street. I mean, I live in a town centre, and it's like there's a lot of homeless people here. So it's like maybe I'll go and give a pound, a couple of quid, maybe a fiver to somebody else and help somebody else. And maybe it's go into a charity shop, okay, and buy something. Maybe you sort your own wardrobe out and take some things down to the charity shop. Do something. Do something for somebody else. Call up your friend. Call up somebody maybe that needs your help. Call up, if you're in business and you've got clients, call up spontaneously one of your clients just to see how they're doing. So it's a bit of a paradox here, because there's two that you're just taking yourself outside of you, completely outside of you, but you're focusing on something that you love doing. Okay, so that although you're taking yourself out, it's still about you. Focus on somebody else, or sit down and write your goal out. And sit down and write out exactly what you want, how you want it, and what you want, and start to get emotionally involved in that. Those three things, okay? Write your goal out, do something that makes you feel good, do something for somebody else, because there's a feel-good factor for us in that. Those three things, I promise you, will take you out of the comparison trap. So that was the comparison trap. 3 tools, if you like, to navigate yourself out of them. And I hope that was helpful, and I'll see you next time. Okay, bye for now.